The Icons of Real Estate Podcast. Are you ready to learn the proven money-making secrets from top-producing Icon agents? Ready to skyrocket your business? This podcast is for you. Tune in every week with your host, Tomasz Fonseca, and find out how to implement proven strategies to 10 times your business, from $3 million to $30 million in just 12 months. Brought to you by the Masters in Real Estate Marketing, Arter SEO.
So welcome to another episode of the Icons of Real Estate podcast, where we highlight top professionals who are making waves in the industry. I'm your host, Karen Roberts, and today we're excited to introduce Connie Page from Connie Page Properties. Now, she specializes in estate and trust sales. So she's a certified trust and probate real estate specialist in California. And so with her, what she calls services before the sale, I'm sure she's going to share that with you. This is her approach, and she helps clients navigate the often overwhelming and emotional probate process. So join us as we dive into her insights and her journey into her real estate career. So welcome to the show, Connie.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So first of all, I suppose we start always around here, around your backstory. What inspired you to specialize in estate and trust sales within the real estate industry?
Well, my own personal experience. My dad was killed in a plane crash without a will when I was a teenager. And my mother, luckily she had a trust in place, but the experiences I had with planned and unplanned estates led me to specialize in this area of real estate. I was in the business when my mom died, but all of the weird, strange dynamics and bizarre things that came out, when people are sick and they pass away, the family dynamic just gets all twisty and sometimes dark and sometimes humorous. But there's a lot of things that people just don't understand. They don't understand the process. And I was in the business going, there should be somebody who can help me with all the things that we need to do to administer my mom's trust. And so started working with attorneys, and then got my certifications, and created systems and methods to help people that are administering a trust or a probate, because it is a daunting task. It's an emotionally challenging task, and you always have family dynamics that creep out or creep up when you least expect it. And so there's a lot of things people forget, like you have to pay off a reverse mortgage within 6 months, or they start foreclosure proceedings. So I have booklets and pamphlets and checklists and stuff for both probate and trust to help people with. It also saves them money because they don't have to call their attorney for every single thing, like an estate sale company, or do you have a repairman, or do you have a trash out person, or so I come alongside with a suite of services, a team of service providers, ancillary to real estate, that help them with all the things they need to do. And I create an action plan for the seller or the administrator and myself with timeframes attached. This is what to expect, and this is when it's going to happen, and this is who we're going to have do it. So people are grieving and they don't think straight, even if they're highly intelligent people in the business. I have somebody here in my office who just came to me a half an hour ago and said, my grandma passed. We didn't think she was going to die. Now we have all this real estate, and we have 14 grandchildren, and we have 5 siblings, and nobody's named. And I'm like, I'll get back to you. So it happens when you don't think it's going to happen.
And there be it. I mean, that's the only certainty in life, right? This is a strange thing. It's the only thing we know that is going to happen at some point. And we still don't seem to be prepared for it. We want to shut ourselves up and not have that conversation. Would you like to, though, share a story maybe of where things can go wrong when we haven't put all these things in place, and how doing certain things could help the transition could help the process go a lot more smoothly?
Yes, I'll give you two examples. One was I got a call from a real estate agent in Seattle, Washington, and she had a neighbor who was contacted by the coroner's office in San Diego because his second cousin passed away. His second cousin who had no heirs that they were aware of. And she said, I looked you up on LinkedIn. I checked you out and I want you to help my friend. Okay, so the administrator hadn't spoken to his cousin in 60 years. 60. The person passed away in a hoarder house where he was laying on the stuff trash for 3 weeks before he was found. No will, no nothing. And this is what happens when you when you think you don't have any heirs, and the coroner's office, the sheriff's department comes, they did a wellness check, they found him, they took him to the coroner's office. Coroner's office somehow found this remote cousin. And this is the interesting thing. He thought it was going to be real simple. Well, it was a vacant home. Some druggies had discovered that it was a vacant home and broke in 24 times during the 4 months that we were working with the property. I had the sheriff's personal cell phone number in my phone because he would have to go by there often. We had to board up the house with 6-inch star bolts, and they actually bootlegged electricity from the neighbors to unbolt the house to get back in the house. And there is such a thing out there, and it's really kind of gross practice, but as estate chasers or heir chasers. And there was an attorney in LA who found out somehow, I don't know if she tracks probate filings, but she gets paid to find additional heirs. So after 4 months, she found 18 remote cousins, including third cousins in England, that were now trying to put in a claim on this person's estate. So that's crazy. Worst case is you think everything, like you think it should be really simple. This guy didn't have any kids, wasn't married, cousin's going to get the house. Okay, he's going to sell it. It wasn't worth much because it was so infested with rats and like yucko. So that's worst case, I'd say. That was a pretty challenging transaction. But that's what happens when you don't plan. And also, what can go completely wrong with if you don't have a plan, especially if you have minor children, because the probate court can come in and determine guardianships. And if you don't have a plan for it, like my dad didn't have a plan for me. And so, what's a 13-year-old kid going to do? I don't know. Family's going to come around and go, I guess we'll take her. But that's worst case. Best case is when it goes really clean. And I had another beautiful one I have very limited, beautiful trust administration or probate administration stories because they're so limited and few and far between. But I had one from the co-administrators who were from Iowa. They got in their van, they drove out, they did all the work. They cleaned the house, they boxed up everything, they had the carpets cleaned, they did everything, and they were like, here, you just need to sell the house for us, and thank you so much. And glorious, beautiful family, and everybody got along and nobody fought over the stuff. And what I see so frequently is that people will think that they deserve something of the decedents. And so they'll go into the house and they'll take what they think they deserve when it's really not theirs. It's, their children, like grandkids are in stealing stuff because they thought grandma wanted to give them this ring. Well, it's not their choice. And it's not their decision. It's the administrator's decision to go through the proper steps to disperse those personal assets before they just sell the real estate and make those disbursements. So best and worst.
It sounds like, I'm sure you've got tons of stories there because everyone is going to be completely different. And it must be so challenging because sometimes, there's going to be a lot of emotion attached to
Mhm.
all of this. So
Yes.
any other sort of what challenges do families face when dealing with these issues related to probate? And how do you manage to navigate through all these challenges?
Again, it's my personal experience and the depth of experience that I have in dealing with all the different dynamics and different scenarios. And I'm always learning something, and nothing is ever as easy as it seems. There have been a couple of pretty smooth ones, but I wouldn't say easy. People they don't realize all of the unresolved issues that they have with somebody until they pass away. And so, one case where the daughter hadn't spoken to the mom, she was really pissed off at the mom. The mom is unconscious in a hospice bed in the living room. And she passed away a week later, but was unconscious. And this woman comes in and she just crawled into bed and started bawling with her mother because she had so much pent up anger and whatever pain, trauma, whatever it was, that all of a sudden she held back. She didn't get the opportunity. She didn't make the time to voice her pains and hurts. And and then there's other people who are like, my mom's on hospice, so I'm just spilling my guts because now she's able to receive what I have to say, and apologize. So my advice is, spill your beefs.
Yes.
When you have time
Life's
to,
too
because
short.
well, life's too short. And my personal experience with my mother was, I said everything I needed to say, and I had no regrets when she passed. And there was other family members who did not say what they needed to say, and still 23 years later have regrets. So I think that the emotional, and I had another friend of mine who is an attorney, and I helped him through some times, and he's like, you know what your gift is? And I said, what? He goes, dealing with the difficult people and the difficult situations. He said, you do it with such grace and love and patience and compassion. He's like, that's God's gift to you, is managing all that stuff. And I said, yeah, but it's not fun.
Yeah. Well,
Sometimes
you're in a very difficult position, but you've got to find the humor in it all, because it's always it's the only eventuality, isn't it? That sometimes something's going to happen when none of us are getting out of this alive, right? Nobody on the planet is getting out of this alive. So having these things in place, but you deal with trust. But what happens if somebody doesn't have a trust?
If they don't have a trust, if they don't have a trust, and I also do business in Montana, so in Montana's probates are a little different, but if they don't have a trust, it's very expensive to probate in California. And you have to probate if I think the smallest state valuation is 165,000 in California now. But if the value is under 165,000, you do a small state probate, which costs less. If it's over that, and again, I haven't checked the most recent values, but it's the smallest state. If it's over a certain value, then you have to file a probate, and the probate cost is court mandated. The court gets fees, the attorney gets state mandated fees, and it's based on the value of the estate. So if you have $1 million house and you have an $800,000 mortgage, it doesn't matter how much mortgage balance you have. The charge for your estate is based on the total value of it, not its encumbrances. Ouch. Yes.
Ouch.
Yeah. So that's in California. Why I always push people to do a trust, because that protects them from probate and those huge probate fees. So, I mean, I don't know anybody who has a house less than $1 million in California. So if you have 2 or 3 properties, that's maybe $4 or $5 million. And you're looking at, I think it's roughly $35,000 per million. I think $30,000 per million. So that's a big probate fee. That's why I recommend trusts in California.
Yeah. So do it now. Don't wait till things are too late, because
and
everybody else gets the money.
Everybody else gets the money, and I will tell you that, like, yes, you're going to have to pay a few $1,000s or maybe a little bit more, depending on the complexity of your estate. But it's better a few $1,000s now than whatever, $70,000, $80,000 for probate fees, with a multiple property estate for your heirs later. So it saves a lot of money to
100%.
do a trust rather than probate in California.
And of course, when you're going through that emotional, traumatic time, you don't need the extra headache of all of that stress.
No, and it's much easier to do a trust administration because probates in California, it takes you about 45 to 60, sometimes 90 days to get your letters of testamentary once your probate filings have been sent to the court. And so you can't do anything. Assets are frozen until those letters of testamentary, which designate the personal representative of the estate, are issued by the court. And so, if you need money for whatever, it's like, let's just say I'm not a lot of people don't name beneficiaries on their bank accounts. And I always recommend if you just at least name that, because then that can be sent to that person. If you don't have any named beneficiaries on your 401k or your bank accounts, do it now, because it makes things easier for that person to administer your estate, because they do have some resources if they don't have any of their own to do the things they need to do, like retain an attorney.
Brilliant. Well, there you have it. Great advice there. Great tips. So how did you develop your this services before the sale approach?
Because there's so many things that need to be done, and there's so many things that attorneys get called for, and every time an attorney gets a call or an email, they charge the client. So I just looked at everything that has to touch the estate. So estate sale, trash out, repairs, fine art appraisals, all these things. So I've kind of accumulated my network of ancillary services to facilitate and coordinate what the administrators have to do. And there's, I charge differently for that. That's a non-real estate related fee. But I'm saving them time and money and headache, and they don't know where to go, and they don't know who's reputable. And a lot of times they're from out of the area. So they just don't know. So I provide a full suite of services prior to selling the real estate. But my job is selling real estate. So if I can look at a problem or challenge, and okay, here's the house and here's all the stuff, and the heirs have already come in and taken what they wanted, then what do we do with the rest of the stuff? That's where I go to work, and I can get a property. I mean, I had one house that was it was an older home, and it was a 3-story home it was a 2-story home with a basement, and it was a hoarder house, but she was a shopaholic hoarder, so everything was new in the box. And there were pathways, and it took us 3 weeks to clean the house out because there was so much stuff. And so I had a trash out person and an estate sale person, and the estate sale person would come pick each room. She'd come take out what she would come take out what she wanted to sell. And it took us 3 weeks to clean the house out, but we got the house on the market within 4 days of being cleaned out. And the heir was just like, I can't believe you did that. Like, how did you get that done? Because they were overwhelmed. They did not know their mother was a hoarder, and they had no idea where to start or where to finish. So that's where I came in and just got it done.
So you just saved them not just money, but you saved them an awful lot of time. So it sounds like it's all about getting your ducks in a row, so that you can have a smooth, seamless sort out at the end, basically. So everybody's as happy as they can be.
Yeah. It's a challenging time. And, again, I'm a shoulder, an ear, a backbone when I need to help an administrator, push back on a beneficiary. So lots of experience, lots of compassion.
And which is needed, because it is such a very difficult situation for anybody, very emotionally charged, and that is what they need to see them through. So, well, Connie, the last question is always the same on this show, because here at Icons, we're the #1 real estate podcast network in the US. And so we are passionate about making podcasting accessible to everybody in the real estate business, which is why we need to have these conversations, because people don't know what they don't know. So if you were to have your own podcast, what would you call it?
Oh, I thought of another one. So the first one I thought of was, well, death is funny. Maybe not. That's kind of maybe crass. Or funny bones. Maybe that be funny bones.
There you go.
Or finding the humor in death. I don't know.
Finding the humor in death, because yes, it is such a touchy subject. We don't want to talk about.
Nobody wants to talk about it.
We need to.
Yeah, and nobody wants to plan for it. So, just one last thing is my daughter's in college. And because this is what I do, I said, you're going to college, you need to do a healthcare directive, healthcare power of attorney, and a will. Because if anything happens to you and you're 1,000 miles away, the doctors are going to do what they want to do, not what you want to do. And she took she's taking a sociology class, and they did a lab on death, dying, and end of life, death and dying. And she calls me and she's like, Mom, I need that paperwork. I'm like, cool. Okay. Yeah. She's like, I know I need. Yeah. So you don't know. I mean, at any age, you need to have at least something that says, this is what I want for my health in the case I can't speak for myself.
Absolutely. So. Well, thank you for those final insights. So if the listeners are thinking, oh, that's a bit of a kick up the backside to get things in order, how do they find you? How can they reach out to you?
My website, www.conniejpage.com, is not a property search site. It's a business site with a lot of FAQs, documents, checklists, booklets on probate and trust administration. Or they can reach me at 760-672-2223.
Fantastic. And all of her details will be in the show notes. So thank you, Connie, so much for your time today.
Thank you.
And talking about this difficult subject, but with a little bit of humor, because that is what we've got to do. And to the listeners, I'll be back next time with the Icons of Real Estate.